GDC has started. The Game Developers Conference for the full week has begun. Day of the Devs, in other words, where developers talk about the latest news and different things about their projects and many other games. And Fair Play Labs is going to be, if they're not already there by now, is set to, I'm not sure what they're going to do, to be honest. But I'm anticipating a Zuko reveal because I think he's the next character. I think he is the next DLC character we're gonna get. We might even end up finding out more information about Iroh and Rocksteady to be included, and maybe their next plans for the upcoming patch for 1.8, which we definitely need. And in this video, also, we're going to be talking about a brand new character for a request for this series. He's not in the game, but he's definitely a good fit for a brand new boss that could be added to be included into the boss rush if he becomes one of the bosses to be included for a new idea, new update, or future update that they can do, upgrading and adding more to the boss rush and including more villains and iconic villains from the Nickelodeon universe or the NCU. But I want to just share my quick predictions. I think we're definitely going to probably end up getting a Zuko reveal. We might end up getting a release date on when he can come out, maybe a trailer, or just some kind of information. At least I hope so for this week of GDC 2024. And then on top of that, as another possibility, they also could potentially talk about a second wave and what they want to do for the second wave, or just announce something about a second wave DLC to have additional plans after the conclusion of the first wave DLC season pass. They did say that they had more plans for Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2 after the conclusion of the first wave, and it hints as if there's gonna be more. I hope it's more. I hope they don't throw in the towel just to say it and be honest. I hope they continue to build more updates, just like with Boss Rush, and they can add on more stuff for the campaign. More mini games could get added, and it's so much more that they can continue to do without jumping on to the next project. This game definitely deserves even more, and it's so much fun to play, and it still has so much stuff that's hidden that they put into this game that's still undiscovered. But I just wanted to start with that first, and just as usual for this series, for the character request, it's not about the character being in and their chances of getting into the game. It's me putting ideas of how I think he or she could play if they were ever to get into the game as a playable character, and sharing my ideas and research for these characters and getting to know them and sharing the information, telling the story about the character, so that way you guys can get to know him or her. If you haven't seen the show before, if you're new to the series, everybody started with a different era of different shows and cartoons and grew up in different times where they didn't know that these characters existed. So we're going to talk about the leader of the Fire Nation himself, the main antagonist of Avatar The Last Airbender, Firelord Ozai for Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2. And we already have the Fire Masters meeting as a stage, but we're going to get into some more ideas and start talking about him and so much more for the series and what I think they can do for the Avatar Last Airbender. We only got 2 characters. Toph didn't make it back in. Unfortunately, hopefully she does come back one day. But we have only Aang and Azula, who is the daughter of Firelord Ozai, who is also a great pick and also a good rep for Fire Nation. Some people don't think so. Some people prefer Zuko over Azula. It all goes hand in hand. So for me, I think she's a good rep. We didn't really need any other additional Fire Nation reps, but we already have Zuko coming in very soon, and why not Firelord Ozai can be able to get in, and we got Iroh as well. So it can be stacked with lots of different Fire Nation characters. So we're just going to talk all things Avatar Last Airbender for the rest of the video. You do not have to watch the full video. As I say, as usual, all the ideas and things I'm going to be talking about for this video today, it's going to be listed in the description if you want to check out my ideas. So I'm not just talking and yapping about it. I already did my diligence of putting these ideas together and typing everything out of how I came up with everything, and just the play style and the stages and more of what I could come up with for this request. And if you have a request, you can also be able to drop your favorite character that you would like to see a moveset for in the comments if you like. But let's get started. Let's start talking about Firelord Ozai himself. And as I just mentioned, Ozai is the leader of the Fire Nation. And not only that, he's both the leader of the Fire Nation and the main antagonist of Avatar: The Last Airbender for the show. He's also the brother of Iroh, who's coming also included with this season pass, this first DLC season pass that we're going to end up seeing later this year. And with Firelord Ozai, he's the father of Prince Zuko himself. Now, Ozai's goal, just real quick, just a little bit of his backstory, if you don't know him, his goal was to conquer all the nations and rule the world. The Earth Kingdom, the Water Tribe, and the Air Nomads. He wanted to rule everything and be in control. He was power hungry. And his other goal, which the other Fire Lords before him, prior, could not locate and find the Avatar. But Firelord Ozai was the one that was different. He ended up being able to eventually go face to face with Aang himself in the proper showdown. When you go and watch the show, it was a crazy showdown between Aang and Firelord Ozai. And he was the only Fire Lord who was able to locate and find the Avatar. So it's like destiny was, if they were destined to meet each other and go face to face with each other for the show. So you guys will be able to check that out if you haven't seen the show yet, and you'll be able to find out even more as you watch. So that's his backstory, just to share and talk a little bit about the character. But now we're going to start talking about the ideas of how I think he could play, and I wanted to do something a little bit different. So since just going back to Azula, I wanted to have him stand out, so he'll be an actual different character if he ever was to make it into the game in the future. If they ever decide to add him as another Fire Nation rep, he'll be able to play differently. But you guys will find that out later on in the video. Let's start with the stages. So we're going to back it up, and this is the only stage that's closest to the Fire Nation, things like that. We have these, but this is from Legend of Korra, of course. But we only have 2 stages that are from Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I wanted to add on to more. The Fire Nation capital, the Imperial City. Some other stage ideas. The Fire Nation Royal Palace. We could be able to go inside, and the battle and the brawl can take place inside the Fire Nation Royal Palace, because it's the home of the Fire Nation Royal family. Firelord Ozai is part of the Fire Nation Royal family. So it'll be the proper stage, and an ideal stage that can come out with him. Most of these characters, if not all of them right now, currently do not have stages included with them. But with Firelord Ozai, they can include more stages to be included with his DLC purchase for paid DLC. And another one that I wanted to bring to the table, remember from Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, the first game, the Western Air Temple was a original stage from the first game. So I wanted to kick it back as a little throwback, as an additional bonus. Why not Omashu? Omashu was the stage for Toph. This could be a stage for Toph's return if they come back and want to add more of the returning veterans for those cut characters from the past from this roster that's still missing. But I think this stage could still be fitting as an additional stage to complement Firelord Ozai in the Avatar series itself. Omashu was from the first game. That can be a stage with Ozai as well, if they decide to. So those are the stages. I just wanted to go through that. It's such a good stage too, with a nice music when you just play, whether you're just playing offline or offline or online, meant to say, but in whatever mode that you're playing, that you choose to play, it's such a catchy song. The soundtrack is great. So they can just continue to add more, and hopefully they'll do more stages for future days as a surprise for these patches. So now it's time to talk about the costumes, and I'm gonna pull up Aang back real quick. Firelord Ozai was a little bit difficult to really try to come up with costumes, and just for starters, I definitely wanted to include his mind control costumes, because since since Mr. Krabs got in, he has his own mind control costume as well. They both have two. Every character in this game, and now even going forward through this past, the DLC characters are going to have their own mind control skins. Why not Ozai? It'll be a cool little fit for him. This purple flame in the background to represent him. But I didn't want to just stop there. I wanted to make it relative. And Firelord Ozai, with his final battle from Aang, this was an actual costume when he was going against Firelord Ozai with the final battle from the show. So Firelord Ozai had some kind of similar feature like that, where he got serious and had to turn things up. He can have a similar costume like this with Aang as an alternate costume. So they can take this straight from the final battle, from the scene from the book 3 ending, or just basically the conclusion of the Avatar: The Last Airbender series with this particular costume. So I wanted to throw that one in there too. But I'm not sure what other costumes he could wear. Maybe someone else can probably have some suggestions, because you see how Azula has two different ones. This one is different from what she has from this. Maybe it could be something like that. Maybe they could do color variations where you can change his hairstyle. They could do something like that as an additional thing where you can edit his hairstyle, possibly. But I stuck with those for costumes. I couldn't think of anything else. I could not find anything else of what else he could possibly wear as costumes. And I think it was he didn't really have too many other additional costumes in comparison to Azula. So it was very different in this case for costumes. But if you guys have even more costume suggestions, you guys can drop them in the comments as well. But now we're going to get into the taunts and the animations that I came up with. And for winning and losing animation, I wanted to start with for Firelord Ozai. So a winning animation for him, Ozai can strike a pose and creating fire and victory as the fire flows from within his hands. Azula doesn't really have that kind of winning animation, and I wanted to make it very different from her, so it's not something similar. So you just strike a cool little pose and just be having that ball of fire just from his hands. Azula doesn't do that in this game. A losing animation going forward, Ozai could be down on his hands and knees in defeat when he lost the battle against Aang. Right when he was calling him weak, when Aang decided to spare Ozai. Ozai was down in defeat and he was just about to give him the finishing blow. He decided to spare him, and he hesitated and decided to let him live, when Aang could have definitely finished him off in one blow. So he can have that as a perfect losing animation, regardless of what costume he has on. So I thought that'll be fitting. They could take that from the final battle and it'll be perfect. It's an ideal losing animation for him. And then some of the quotes that I wanted to share that he can possibly end up doing and saying in the game. It was in the midst of just the story campaign interactions, and I even came up with I ended up spotting and finding some unique interactions that he can have with Aang and also the upcoming Zuko, which I think will be fitting for him. So even one, for example, for encounters, he would say, even with all the power in the world, you are still weak. He actually said that to Aang, and it was perfect, because that's the same losing animation when he was down and he was definitely done for the battle. Basically, he said that towards Aang, but he can say that as for encounters when you run into him in the story campaign. And there's some other additional quotes. I got this from book 3, Fire, or basically from the show. So you Avatar fans will know, I have all the power in the world. He could say something like that. And there's some potential story campaign interactions with Aang, for example. I wanted to just share and showcase for some ideas that they can put together, because these DLC characters you can find in the story and be able to unlock them. He'll say this to Aang, and it's actually taken from the show that I wanted to share. He said, you're weak, just like the rest of your people. They did not deserve to exist in this world, in my world. And he says, prepare to join them. And I didn't want to say that other final line, because it's a family-friendly game. He's not going to end up saying that final line that he says in the actual show. So it'll be perfect for a unique interaction with Aang. And another one he'll have if he runs into Aang from the story campaign. I can definitely visually see them adding this if Ozai gets into the game as a playable. He said, after generations of Firelords failed to find you, now the universe delivers you to me as an act of providence. You could see all this during the final fight or before the fight starts, before Aang, with Aang and Firelord Ozai for the final showdown. So 2 unique interactions with Aang, and then moving on. I know Zuko's not in the game yet, but I wanted to include these as well. Because it was like an insult. I can't believe he said this, but this was apparently in the comments. I did not read the comments, but I did some research on some additional things that he was known to be saying and some of his best quotes. He actually said this to Zuko in comparison when he was talking about Azula. She was born lucky. You were lucky to be born. So this was apparently a quote, a special reaction that he had said to Zuko while Azula and Zuko were in the same room. It was in the comments, but never was revealed to be said in the show. Don't you think that's just brutal and ruthless? That's just who he is. Ozai is he just doesn't hold back. So this is a game for him. So this is just some of the ideas that I came up with for, just animations, reactions, and taunts and things like that, and some quotes that he can say in the game. Even when you do like a special taunt, of course it'll be short and sweet. They'll probably have to cut it down, but these are proper reactions and interactions that he can have with the current characters that we have from The Last Airbender with Aang and Azula, things like that. I wonder what he would say to Azula in this kind of game though. Maybe he'll just, because he favors Azula, Ozai favors Azula more than he does for Zuko. It's as if he doesn't care about him, which is crazy to say. But now it's time for my favorite part, the moveset. And I'm doing it a little bit differently. I started with his recovery move, and I also made it a unique skill in the comparison with this move that I wanted to get into. And it's a move that Korra has with her glide, where she'll be able to glide across the screen. And it's basically, she can almost guarantee, she's guaranteed to get in. I wanted to give Ozai the same thing. And with this move, Supreme Firebending, Firelord Ozai, just to start talking about his abilities and moves that I gave him, Firelord Ozai is going to be able to use his firebending skills to glide across the screen to escape or on in on his opponents. And also some additional things I wanted to do with this move, outside of just gliding like Korra does, I wanted to upgrade it and give it a little bit more. He'll be able to hover in midair and float with the fire below his legs, similar to how Korra can glide, but it's much more I wanted to do with it. So it's going to be an upgraded version of what she can do, because she says woohoo when she grows flies every time. Sometimes she says it, and then sometimes she doesn't say anything at all, but it's perfect. And I wanted to do it for his moveset, and he does it during his battle with Aang, when they're about to get ready to get started, when they're fighting and stuff like that, and he approaches Aang, because they're on one pillar, just far from each other with distance. He actually flies using his firebending, so they can use that for mobility for Firelord Ozai to start with his moveset. Now, a different technique I wanted to give him, it's the next move, Flame Burst I call it. So Firelord Ozai punches the ground with force, creating a ring of fire that can knock away all his enemies on the battlefield. Yet another move that caught my attention during the battle. It can be utilized in Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2. And its reach is going to be crazy, because anybody even if you're behind them, you just want to make sure you jump over this, because that's the only way to really dodge it. His next move, Fist of the Mortal Flame, I like to call it. So Ozai can be able to attack with his fiery fist and deliver a final blow that can stun and burn the enemy. And one thing that I noticed about Azula's moveset when I was playing as her, I don't play her too much in this game, but with Azula's moveset, she doesn't have a single move that can inflict the burn status. And I think it's only when she does the I think if she uses like a slime version of her fireball, if one of the fireballs hit you, you'll be inflicted with the burn status. I could be wrong, but I don't think I don't think it. I think it did inflict the burn status, but that's only when you get hit with the slime version of her fireball that she fires with her neutral special. So I just don't know. I don't think none of her other moves had any burn status elements other than that moment. So I wanted to give Ozai that ability to be able to inflict that status more on you. And Aang has one move with that ring of fire that he does with that special pose with the flame. That'll automatically burn you if he can hit you with it, and it's close quarters. So just moving on, I also gave him an explosive wave technique where Ozai can release fire from all over his body to repel opponents around him as a counterattack to inflict the burn status element. See how I'm utilizing that burn status, that status element. Most of these characters don't really have that. Some of them have poison, like Nigel Thornberry, for example, and Lucy also has it as well if she bites you. I don't think anybody else has a poison thing, and it was Plankton as well when he uses Karen, when he asks Karen for help. So I wanted to utilize that status element with some of Ozai's moves, and this explosive wave is going to be perfect because it's going to be his own unique version of a slime cancel without needing to use a bar of your slime. So you can basically, you won't need to consume any slime that you already have saved and in reserve. He'll always be able to use this explosive wave, and it's going to be a unique counterattack because Patrick has his own little counterattack in this game, which he did not have from the first game, which is new for his move pool. So Firelord Ozai with this explosive wave is going to be able to knock you back, so he'll be able to do some damage to you and get you off guard. So he won't even need to use this slime at all. His own unique counter and the explosive wave to basically slime cancel in a way, but he uses his fire bending as his own unique slime cancel. Maybe it sounds a little overpowered, but I wanted to make him that dangerous because he has all this ability with this skill with the fire bending. Now, I don't even remember him using this, but when I was watching the battle and rewatching some clips, he has lightning bending just like Azula. Azula has lightning bending part of her moveset. So Firelord Ozai is going to also have it as well, but I wanted to change it up. So this lightning bending technique is also going to be part of his projectile attack, or basically his projectile attack. So Ozai can be able to charge up lightning from his hands. I wanted to give it a different variation. Azula cannot charge her lightning in this game. Once she releases it, once you press the button input to use her lightning bending, it comes right out. But with Ozai, you're going to be able to charge it up and be able to release it whenever you want to. So whenever you press the prompt button, be able to charge it up a little bit. Almost similar to how Gertie can charge up her fists. You'll be able to charge up his lightning bending, and you'll be able to release it whenever you want to. See how it's similar how it works with her charging fists. Something like Donkey Kong can do it. So she could charge up her little fist, and then you can release it when you press the button again. So I wanted to do that with Ozai's lightning bending techniques as an idea for additional move. Now, I wanted to give him some special techniques or a meter of his own. April got one with her ratings. Who else got a meter? I'm trying to think. Oh, and April Ember with her cheer gauge. And then Reptar with his meter with his fire. Because if he doesn't have enough fire, if his fire meter is low, he won't be able to shoot. He won't be able to fire a fireball. Things like that. And then Mr. Krabs has his own money meter or money gauge. Things like that, where he gets the gold. Things like that. So I wanted to give Ozai a meter of his own, and I call this the Wrath of Ozai. And I gave him a rage meter mechanic where Firelord Ozai can slowly start building his rage meter at the start of the battle, and each time he receives damage, it raises the meter. So when you activate the Wrath of Ozai, both his movement speed and his attacks deal more damage with super armor included. So it's almost similar to how Squidward has that anger, and he activates it for a limited amount of time, and then he loses it after a little bit. It doesn't have a meter, so I wanted to make it a little bit different from Squidward's, and it's going to be better than Squidward's because he's going to have super armor, and he's going to be able to, it's going to last longer in comparison to Squidward's, because it's going to be a meter that's going to deplete once it's active. And with that super armor, he's basically going to be able to absorb every blow or any sort of projectile that you throw at him, unless you hit him with a super, of course. Then I'll just slow him down and obviously trigger the animation. But I wanted to do something like that with him, and I was just thinking about the different characters and how they play in this. So the Wrath of Ozai, you definitely want to watch out for that and make sure you keep an eye on his rage meter, because once he unleashes it, he's going to be really tough to handle, and he's going to be able to basically just come on and just take on you as a tank. Sure, you won't be as big as Plankton and Reptar, but that super armor, he's going to be able to just take everything for quite some time. But that's everything that I put together for his moveset. And just to wrap up, since this game is out now and exists, these characters have supers and ultimates, or basically ultimate attacks. So his super, I call this the ruler of nations. Firelord Ozai can rain down fireballs and lightning strikes from the skies above that cover the entire battlefield for a limited amount of time. And they can go through buildings too, so if you're on hardcore chores, let's back up. There's nowhere for you to run from this super. You can't take cover inside, thinking that the fireball is not going to hit you. The fireballs are going to be able to fly and phase through the buildings. Basically, if you're in like an enclosed stage like hardcore chores inside the house, the fireballs and the lightning strikes are still going to be able to get you. And then on top of that, you're not just watching out for that, he's also going to be invincible and can fire blast from his hand, fire blast from his hands that can launch enemies as well. So he's going to be fast. You're just going to have to keep your eyes everywhere. It's going to be tough to keep up. Gotta watch out for the fireballs that's raining from the sky, the lightning strikes, and then Ozai that's going to be running up on you. That's going to be too much to handle. And just like I was saying before for my other ideas for the other characters that I did for requests, none of these characters have a super where you'll be able to take control of the character. They can do something like that for Firelord Ozai, and other characters that get into the game for these supers. Because once you use the super, that's it. You don't have any sort of manual control. So that's why I was so excited for Aang and Korra. I thought they obviously go in their avatar states when you activate the super, but you cannot control them. So Ozai can definitely open up doors being playable when his super is active. They can do that for some of these upcoming fighters that they want to add for the second wave, or just even other characters, maybe even potentially returning vets as an idea. But that's everything that I came up with for this character request for Firelord Ozai. I had so much fun with this, and I definitely would like to see Firelord Ozai and Aang round 2 or Aang versus Firelord Ozai part 2, and they can relive that final battle with Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2. How cool would that be? And we can even see the newest avatar go head to head with Firelord Ozai from the next generation, Korra and Ozai. That'll be awesome to see. And I definitely would I hope that he does get into the game, and even if he's not playable, they can add him into the boss rush to be confrontable, and then it can also count as a campaign update where you can also be able to run into Firelord Ozai. They can definitely expand these modes. Instead of keeping them as they are, they can have way more characters and villains and iconic villains like Ozai that deserves a chance to get into this game.